Okay, I guess we'll see how that works. I've hit the go live button.
Okay, guess I'd better go live with you.
Well, I see me.
I see you too.
Hopefully everyone can hear me. Can you hear me?
Oh, no, but that's probably my fault.
Okay. Hey. Hi, Opal. Yes, apparently you can hear me. Yes. Okay. Hey. Hi, Opal.
I'm sorry.
Yes, apparently.
I'm trying to mute now.
Ian was checking to see if he could hear me, so sorry about that echo. Welcome. How are you all doing?
Image looks pretty dark.
Well, it doesn't look dark on my end, and I don't know.
It doesn't. Just on mine, so I don't know.
Hey, a few more people have shown up. All right. We're ready for the answers and questions and all that stuff. We're having kind of an intense couple of days. One of the other grandmothers is in ICU and has just been flown up to Portland because if they don't do that, she won't make it for sure. So I'm doing good. How about you two? Charlotte says, hi all. Hi, Charlotte. Lori says, hello, new fan. Hi, Lori. Welcome. Yeah, so everybody's kind of a little bit stressed as far as, talking about death and so forth. Jono says, hello. Gonna light the pillars for light? Nope. Don't need them.
I would if I could.
He just likes to bug us about it.
That's okay. I actually want to do it. Figure out what my next video is going to be. I'll put it at the beginning.
All right. Get some light on the subject.
Yep.
Hey, guys. Yeah, so death has been definitely on our minds since she's in the hospital. Darian says, hello, love the hair. Thank you. I wasn't sure. I was like trying to figure out what to do at the last minute. It's like I need to get this out of my face, so I like to do braids from time to time. Angela says, hello everyone, wishing you all a blessed magical day. I love your braid, Siofra. Thank you. Well, I guess that confirms it. More than one person likes it. Sheila says, hi from West Virginia. Sorry for the family sickness. It was very sudden. They're not sure if she had a stroke or exactly what happened, but she's been having almost nonstop seizures since they got her to the hospital yesterday or the day before. It was sometime. It's been kind of a blur as far as that goes. I did some distance healing for her because they asked me to, and when I connected with her, I just got that she was tired and didn't want to fight anymore. So I will be surprised if she survives, but she is in the best ICU in the state right now. They only have like 11 beds there, and they're neurology specialists, so there's a chance. Let's see what happens. But yes, it definitely makes you think about the whole subject. And I feel for her because she's had such a hard life. She's not had a good one as far as it goes, so it's been kind of interesting as far as that stuff happens. Angela says, and sorry for your family member being sick. Would you like us to send healing vibes? Well, I don't know. See, I know she's up in Portland. I'm not sure exactly the name of the facility at this point. So I can post it on our community board when I find out exactly where she is. If you want to send her energy, we're accepting all energy on her behalf. So I'll give details and her name and everything else on the community page when I get that from my daughter. Donna says, I do like to tease you guys about the pillars. I probably shouldn't because I know Siofra doesn't always like fire. Yeah, well, remembering being burned at the stake just makes me in fire a little bit.
That's okay though. We don't mind being teased about it, and I really am going to put it in my next video when I decide what that's going to be.
Lori says, I like your hair too. I've had lots of deaths in my family. I'm so sorry. Oh, and Jono's continuing. I'm sorry about the gravity of what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Well, it is life. It's kind of part of the whole thing. I just find it bizarre in a way because my daughter just spent time with my daughter-in-law because she's the one who lost her mother recently. And they made a bunny cake. Apparently it was a tradition between her and her mom to make a bunny cake for Easter. So my daughter was over there making the cake and so forth after the other grandmother ended up at the hospital. So, yeah, because there wasn't anything she could do. They got her to the hospital and they were hoping for the best as far as it went. So it's sort of an interesting kind of like of the grandmothers around kind of thing. I'm at the moment the only one that's in good health. So makes me aware of my age. Angela says, should we light transition candles in that case? However you want to do it. I mean, what I do is, give them the healing energy to use however they wish. And if it's to ease the transition or to fight and get better, it's up to them. So Joy says, hello, sorry about your sad news. It was a rough week for me. Was very short-tempered. I blame the full moon. Yeah, the full moon can certainly bring stuff up. Did nothing this weekend and glad to be here with you all. Mary says, hello everyone. I love your hair today, Siofra, and thank you for sharing about your family member. Yeah, it is part of our path, really, understanding and learning about the transitions and stuff from one state to another and so forth. It's not something that we can make stop and go away.
I'll be back. I gotta go get a pillow for my back.
Okay, Ian is going to go get a pillow. His back has been bothering him. So, yeah, especially after the one that just happened, too, pretty close, a month or two ago, I think it was. I guess it was about 2 months ago that the other woman passed. But it makes me think about the fact that
Just use a couple of these.
since we know that is, all of us are going to go through that, to think about what that means for us and how we live our life and how we're going to feel when it's over. Like with this particular family member, she's just had a horrific life and she didn't have the ability to leave it. She ended up staying in an abusive environment for a long time. So it just makes me think. Lori says, wow, you say my name out loud. Other channels haven't, so I appreciate that. But we're a little bit different. We didn't follow a playbook of any kind. So Angela says, oh, I like that idea. I'll do that, Siofra. Death is complicated when someone is on the cusp. I always wonder if they're suffering at certain points. Living is too much. Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's like the fight is gone and they're ready to rest. And, me at the moment, I'm still pretty feisty, so I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon. But eventually, it's going to have to happen. We're all super friendly here, Lori. Welcome.
I don't know, your mom is still alive, so.
That's true. My mom is 93 and she's still around. Although, interestingly enough, she's making new memories. She came up with a new memory about how I got my name and decided that some chieftain honored me by gifting me my name. And I'm just like, wow, okay, that sounds pretty cool.
It's Alzheimer's or?
No, it's just
regular
I think
dementia?
I think at 93 the brain is slowly starting to shut down a little bit, and so it's not like Alzheimer's. It's a different kind of a pretty mild form of dementia, but I think memories are getting confused, and she probably saw a movie that had something like that in it, and then she attached it, because the first memory that didn't happen was not a good one, because she remembers very vividly being put in a psych ward for 24 hours. She says, I'll never forget that. And we're all going like, okay, nothing we've ever heard about. But yeah, Angela says maybe her subconscious is unlocking past life stuff. Yeah, maybe. Or she's rewriting her own history before she goes, or I don't know. Or I think, it's like she does a lot of reading. She likes reading books, and there could, gets very vividly into the stories, so it could be just that kind of barriers between the reality of everyday stuff and the past and so forth. But my sister has a good response to it. She just says, wow, you never told us about that, and then it gets her to tell her about it, because it's really no point in telling them that the memory is wrong. If it affects her wherever it came from. And I think that's how past life memories are too for me. It's like I have a bunch of them I've incorporated, and I learned something from them and then kind of left that behind, and moved on back into this life and tried to be present here as much as possible. But, it's like, if you think about how little you really remember from the life you're in currently, how likely is it you're going to remember extreme details from other ones? It's like, yeah, you remember highlights, highs and lows maybe, big emotional turmoils and impacts and things like that, because that's what we remember in the one that we happen to be in. So it's interesting anyway. Mary says, very interested in the topics of death and dying, and have been playing with the idea of going to training to become a death doula for a while now. And Angela says, what is a death doula? Well, a death doula is sort of like the new term that they're using for transitional things. So death, birth. I know someone who's a birth doula, and I'm not sure maybe Mary can tell us what the word means, but it's like someone who assists with that. So it could also be, someone in a clergy type of situation could be helping with something like that as well. Kendra says, hey there, Siofra and Ian. Hi, Kendra. Yeah, so it's sort of interesting, though, since this is Easter and this is all about, from their perspective, coming from the dead and coming back to life.
So if you want a thing on the doula, it says, trained professional who provides continuous physical, emotional, and informational support to their client before, during, and shortly after childbirth or death in that case.
Right.
The same thing, basically, yeah.
Yeah, so Angela says, so like a midwife, but not just for when you give birth. Perhaps I'm understanding it slightly wrong. No, I think that's it. Mary says, true, Siofra. I can barely remember last week, so I can see that I would be at remembering past lives. Yes. Yeah, it is. The whole subject is interesting.
Yeah, well, not only that, I want to forget most of my past, this life. Before I met Siofra, everything would just be dumped, and I'd be happy with that.
As long as we remember what we've learned, I guess, the memories that got us there aren't as important in that case.
Yeah, well, my point was, I didn't really want to add to that with adding more past life memories.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not actually fun to do, because usually if you're going to remember a past life, it's not going to be a fun one to start with. It's, generally speaking, a more traumatic kind of event.
Of course, because they make the impact, and those are what comes up, yeah.
Well, and in the process of clearing yourself out is going to be the icky start part first, and that actually helps to kind of tampen the ego for sure, because, if we all remembered being some famous, wealthy person and then sat on our laurels for the rest of our lives, that one gets me. Ashley was actually talking about that the other day. She says, yeah, I don't know how many Cleopatras I've met who are like, slinging coffee. And I'm like, well, what are you doing now?
I don't know if it's still the case, but back in the past when I was with the OTL and stuff, there was a ton of Crowley reincarnations too.
All right, because he said he was coming back.
Yep, there were a whole bunch of them. And in fact, Lon Duquette and Israel Regardi, I believe, talked about doing a book about the subject and doing interviews with each one of them, but they were going to call it Liver Nuts, N-U-T-Z. So that's what I read. Regardi writes, or Lon Duquette wrote that, one of the two.
Okay. Doesn't surprise me. Angela says, I wouldn't want to be those people. Some of the royals were insane. I know they were, yeah. If our version of success is power and money, then it's illusory, because that's something we definitely cannot take with us. So my idea of success is, improving myself and trying to be my best version of who I am in the life I'm in, and be able to take that with me. Joy says, I've just had glimpses here and there which seemed to explain current relationships, like I remembered who we were then. And Jono says, I've never done past life stuff, but I'm pretty sure I was also Cleopatra. Yeah. I have a theory, actually, with some of the lives. There's so many people that focus on them, and so much information is out there in the collective unconscious that you could tap into and remember those lives, whether you were actually literally there or not. And it's kind of like, they're like a high point in the Akasha, and
there does seem to be a lot of that.
Yeah, they attract a certain type of energy or attention or something like that. And but if you remember being the slave in the bottom of a ship, it was probably accurate, I would think. Mary says, birthing midwives help soul transition to this earth. A death doula assists leaving this earth. I would say very basically, and yes to what Ian said, just for death and dying instead of birth. Yeah, and it is a transition for sure. And when my daughter-in-law's mother died, that's her and my son asked me to help with her transition to the other side, which I did. That's why she came and told me that she was gone. I guess it'll be interesting to see if I hear from Liz or not. We'll see. Angela says, my goal is to be happy, helpful, witch, and make as many people smile as possible before I go to wherever. Well, that sounds like a wonderful
awesome,
goal.
yeah.
I like that goal. I approve. Erin says, hello, sorry I'm late. Well, you're not too late, but welcome. I'm glad you're here. It's always good to have you. Yeah, so, yeah, that's what's going on for us. We don't have to dwell on the subject the entire time, for sure, but if people want to talk about it, that's fine too. We've had that happen a couple of times, because life is the way it is. It's like what's happening, and I've been giving people a lot of hugs, and a lot of people have been crying, so definitely emotions are high, and I'm glad that I can kind of allow that to happen in my space, and am comfortable enough with it that people are comfortable enough with me that they can let it happen and let it go. So that's good. I may be the last grandmother in the family, so I guess my duties have tripled, potentially. I'm taking up everyone's roles. Violet says, hi guys, sorry I'm late. Hi Violet. Angela says, Violet, speaking of joy, it's always a happy day when Violet is here. Yes, it's always fun to have all you guys. We really appreciate the fact that you check in with us, and we have these conversations every week. My next video is going to be on binding Poppet and the mirror box spell, and weirdly enough, the voice didn't work. It was no sound after I did like almost 15 minutes of a video, so it's going to be different. We're going to do a voiceover, and I'll try to remember what I talked about while I was in the zone, so it'll be a bit odd, but I can't redo it because it's done. It's like, I'm not going to undo it and start it over again, so yeah. Violet says, thanks, Angela. Angela says, here's a poem for everyone today to help balance some of the sadness today. I manifest everyone extra hugs, love and light, lots of cookies, and peaceful sleep tonight. Amen and blessed be. Jono says, Canary isn't here every week, but I remember her past life work being very convincing. Stuff like being a domestic servant who had a fling with a shoemaker. Ian's curling metaphor sticks with me. Yeah. And when it happens, it can be confusing when you meet somebody that was in a past life with you. You can think that means you're supposed to be spending time together in this one, but it's not necessarily the case. Charlotte says, what stone are you wearing on your necklace today? This is my tiger eye. I think it's a blue or green tiger eye. I guess that's a green tiger eye.
Looks greenish.
Yeah, I have a blue tiger eye somewhere else. This one's a green one. And it went and stayed somewhere else for a while, and I was wearing my Seraphonite for quite a while. It just sort of varies, goes back and forth between different stones. Angela says it looks black on camera. Pretty. Yes, it is pretty. And that's the thing, it's like, it has a lot of black streaks in it, but it's got that nice green hints in the stripes and some of the golden colored. Tiger eyes come in so many different colors, it's just sort of fascinating. Blue ones are harder to find, but they're pretty. I like them. Mary says, Angela keeps wishing me cookies, and I still have yet for them to manifest. Well, it's time to get on it. We have to make apricot bread now, because we got all those apricots given to us. But hey, at least I got all the jam made.
I don't know, I get the blender cranked up.
Do some more juices.
Smoothies, yeah.
Yeah, smoothies. Bounty. There's lots of bounty out there. So we're trying to figure out what to get our bunny to eat, because apparently he doesn't like his rabbit food. We're like, no. But he does like my lavender, so I've been picking lavender leaves, but he only eats a little bit. I guess we'll see what happens. But the animals have been having fun sitting on me a lot lately. It's right on my lap. And the bunny jumped on the cat's head again, but this time the cat didn't hiss. And the bunny got on my lap over the cat, so.
When he's not being an attack bunny.
Yes. Angela says, Jonna says, nope. Luna thinks we've shared past lives together, which is cool, but doesn't change anything for me in this life. This is true, because this is the one that you're in. Angela says, hey, leafy greens and herbs, add a few bananas to sweeten the deal. My friend had a bunny for 12 years. He's a very picky bunny. He doesn't like the normal kind of food. We've got him romaine, which he suddenly has decided he doesn't like anymore. He's not eating his hay. It's like, I don't know what he was going through, but and he's very assertive about licking me, jumping up and licking my arms and stuff. It's pretty funny. Does he eat alfalfa hay, Timothy hay? My rabbits like dandelions. Are they growing there yet? That's an idea.
Yeah, not yet though.
But we have dead nettles, which I picked some for him, as well as the lavender leaves. So I'm going to be doing some, grazing in my garden. And I just picked up some white sage seeds and some sweetgrass seeds, so I'm going to grow them. And that way I can grow my own supply, and then I'll feel comfortable making smudge sticks and stuff once the plants get big enough.
When we collected our wildcrafted all of our sage from over there in eastern Oregon, or was that was in California?
That was in California. That was in the deserts. That was the sage that we got, and we made a lot of sage sticks out of that.
That worked great.
Yeah, we did offerings and so forth. We collected quite a bit. That was around Medicine Lake, I think. Around the deserts outside of Medicine Lake. It was kind of interesting. Lori says, what about Clover? I had rabbits as a child. Yeah, we're going to see what we can come up with, because he needs more greens. He likes crackers, which is probably not good for bunnies. But he's never been with other bunnies. My granddaughter rescued him from a home that was just keeping him in a cage and not doing anything with him at all. And so, who knows? We'll see. Everyone's got a particular personality. You have to figure out what their personality is and work with it, I guess. So we'll see what happens.
It's kind of an interesting comparison. I like cats. This cat we have is just so expressive, and I love that, except when he's driving me nuts because he's food obsessed.
He's quite the meower.
Yep.
And won't stop meowing until he gets his food. Like, yep, he was having fun with that.
Aside from that, though, he's one of those cats that makes all kinds of sounds, and
Sings.
some of them sounds like questions. And
Yep, he sings. He's got to have some Siamese in him because he's got that kind of vocalization going. Thomas says, Ian, it was a long time ago that you projected your mind into that cat, a feeding tube with teeth and claws, if I remember right. You don't want to mind meld with Nibbler?
No, I think at this point I'll kind of stick with plants. That was just too weird of a perspective. Of course, it didn't change my feeling about her. I still loved her as a great cat, but yeah, that was that was...
That was Jasmine.
Was it Jasmine? Okay.
Yep, that was Jasmine.
All right, then. But yes.
She was the cat that you mind melded with.
Yep.
And were very startled by.
Well, that's a real sign of getting a contact. Is there, if you get a contact with a being too or something, there's always a little bit of a shock, and I don't know how to call it. It's not really a shock, but there's a
Sort of stuns your system.
yeah.
Briefly.
There's a definite effect if you get in real contact.
And it's usually nothing like you expect.
That's true.
That's one of the things I noticed with all the paranormal work that I've done. Is like, you get ideas in your head about what might be going on, and then you get there and it's nothing you've ever even thought of, is usually a good sign that it's something real, because I'm like, what? Well, okay, I can see that now, but I never even imagined that could be a reason. So it is kind of interesting. Desiderata says, check that clover for 4-leafed ones before you feed the bunny. And Angela says, the cat is just saying, Human, give me the snacks, right?
Yep.
Meow.
Yep.
And when he's really hungry and I haven't jumped up immediately, he'll get very lovey. He'll jump up on the back of my chair and start rubbing my head with his head, and then biting my hair and whatnot, just really trying to love me up. It's like, I'm so good, I'm such a good cat, you really want to feed me right now, don't you? He's pretty cute. But that's a good thing, it's like interacting with other life forms, I think, is important for us, for our development, really, when it comes down to it, because humans tend to be human-centric a lot, and it helps to develop empathy and brings us out of ourselves a little bit into some other, form of consciousness, and expands our ability to comprehend things. And
I agree. Anything that gives you more of a perspective is kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
That does. Gets you out of your tunnel vision, kind of.
Right. And it's also hard to ignore. Animals and pets are good for that. You're having a bad day and they're like, nuzzle, 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 nuzzle. And you're like, oh, okay, fine. I guess I'm going to succumb and pet the bees, and then you feel better. So, yeah, they're good for us. And cats are special when it comes to being able to see spirits and sense energy and so forth. They're really good at that. Of course, I think a lot of animals are, but we know about the cats for sure, for us. But yeah. Thought it was interesting that today it is like this year is a holiday for all of the 3 main what do you call them, Judeo-Christian religion. Abrahamic, yeah. All 3 Abrahamic religions have got a major holiday today. It's sort of interesting to see that all come together, and then the fighting continues, even though they're all celebrating the same day. It's confusing to me, but hey, that's me. But it is kind of interesting when things like that happen. Been having some chaotic dreams lately, so I'm worried that there's things coming on the horizon that are going to create more chaos, but I survived, so I'm okay. I don't know about anyone else. Desideratum said, I just caught when you were talking about blue tiger eye. Do you use that for any paranormal stuff? Any others that are noteworthy for investigation or aspects of that? Well, when I do paranormal stuff, a lot of times I use selenite because the spirits can see that, and I can help them find their way out of a house. The non-human spirits, the human spirits can see it too, but the selenite is really useful for non-human spirits and nature spirits and things like that are stuck in the wrong place, because I can sort of project out a light. And certainly I use my own protective stones and things like that to make sure that I'm safe and people around me are safe. And sometimes if there's energy fields going through the house, like ley lines, power spots, and stuff like that, then I can use either petrified wood or black tourmaline or obsidian to pull the energy down into the ground, and then jade to pull the energy back up out of the ground to sort of get it around the house, so that the house is kind of like an island kind of thing. So I definitely use crystals when I'm doing my work, depending on what I find. Anjali says the planetary alignment on March 28th was beautiful if you saw it. No, I'm sure it was cloudy. We didn't see anything here at all.
Yeah, we get a high fog a lot of times, so even if it isn't actively raining and cloudy, we can't see through it anyway.
Yeah, sometimes. They have one of those memes and it says, okay, spaceships have just arrived, Oregon, cloud, you know. The most amazing planetary alignment won't be seen for another 1,000 years, Oregon, cloud. It's like, doesn't matter what it is. Angela says, it confused me to I feel everyone fights over nothing. We should all be able to stay in our corners and believe our beliefs as long as it's not harming ourselves or others. I don't want anyone in danger, but we should all be able to live and enjoy without so much trouble.
Agree.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is definitely how I feel about it. Desert Rom says, curious what crystals might be good for making into pendulums. I think just about any.
Well, yeah.
I need a tissue or something.
Uh,
Here we go.
There's a couple of things I would think about, and that is for clairvoyance and stuff, you could use a lunar sort of crystal, such as a
moonstone,
or a
silver,
quartz crystal, that type of thing. They're all kind of lunar related, and so they're good for that. Another good universal one would be a solar stone, so sunstone or something like that. If you want to specialize, you could always specialize in a particular thing. You could have one stone that's related to Jupiter if you want to do divination about money and wealth and how to make money and things like that. So you could kind of select them. Earth ones would be good for everything, so like petrified wood or...
And Edgar Casey said that if you wanted to
iron.
find certain substances, you could make a pendulum out of the substance. Like, so if you were looking for gold, you would have a pendulum where you could put a piece of gold in the pendulum.
Right.
There's some that you can buy that open up, and then you can place what it is you're trying to find inside of it. And it sort of makes it a different type of pendulum, so you're looking for something specific. I've met people
Right.
that use pendulums and dowsing rods and stuff for other things other than water.
Honestly, I only have a little bit of success with the pendulum, so I don't use it for too much because most of the time it's not so successful for me.
Yeah.
Better ways. But that's just individual lack of ability on my part.
Angela says resin and crystal chips, then you can customize it. Jono says, hi Dizzy, my pendulum is brass and willow. I've been pleasantly surprised. Yesy and silk string.
Cool, yeah, that's what I found.
Yeah. To help separate you from it so you're not influencing it so much.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at that. Once I get it to play, it's like I can't help myself. And it's entertaining to watch it spinning around really insanely fast and then tell it to stop and have it completely stop on a dime. I mean, instantly just drop and stop moving. I impress myself, but it's not useful as a pendulum at that point. Angela says, I put mine around the wrist of one of my matron's dolls' wrist. My hands shake too much, but she moves it to get my attention or to indicate her presence.
Yeah, I usually try to rest my elbow in a spot where it's the least effort on my arm, and I'm holding the pendulum up.
Do you put like a cushion under your elbow so it doesn't hurt your bone?
It's on something. Yeah.
Something soft.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, yeah, that could get painful.
Yeah, no, but
Elbows.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a piece of cloth over my thing I use, so it doesn't bother me too much. But yeah.
Joy says, I took a dowsing class and he gave us a nut on a string. I use it in stores to help me choose the right vitamins because it's not so woo-woo as a crystal. Yeah, I had a chiropractor who used muscle testing to try and decide what he needed to do to me. And I found it was interesting because he had his own idea of how my body should react, and he didn't accept my results. He moved my body to make it do what he wanted it to do. So using muscle testing, again, just like with a pendulum, you got to have a really clear mind so that you're not overtly influencing what happens.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a true reading. Desert Rhyme says, "Hi, Jono. Good ideas. Thanks, everybody. You're welcome." And, yeah. I don't know what I had in my head. I had a thought that went in and then went right back out, so it might be circling the room. See if it comes back or not.
Well, maybe somebody else has a thought they want to share.
Absolutely. Get my brain going on something else. But yeah. All that stuff is interesting, though. The most important thing, of course, is relationships with yourself and with people and the world. Jana says, Siofra, I think that's what makes the pendulum useful. If you can control it consciously perfectly, then you can tap into lesser understood subconscious information. I don't know. But, we all have our skill sets, so what works best for some people. Mary says, what is a matron doll for a pendulum? We'll let someone else answer that. Luna says, hi, Siofra and Ian. How are you guys getting on? Well, we're getting on, and we're very happy that we're together. We've been talking about that lately. Luna says, hi. I guess that was ho, and I automatically said hi. Angela says, have you seen those statues with seeds and beads in the bottom? Before I got one, not realizing it had that in there.
I haven't particularly, but that makes perfect sense that they would do. Somebody might want to
My
do
matron
that.
doll is a porcelain doll I use for a statue of my matron goddess. Lewis says, hello. Hello, Lewis. I just found out, I have an angel doll that a client made for me in 1996, apparently. She signed the bottom.
Wow, was that long ago?
It was that long ago, and she named it Bridget. And it has red hair. And the people in my office decided I was collecting angels for some reason. So they were outdoing each other, trying to get me the most unique angel possible. The cat really likes that lap. It's got its own little rocking chair I got for it. And I was thinking that could actually be a goddess doll, considering I was thinking about that, like she uses for the matrons. Angela says that my pendulum is metal. I place it on her wrist at first as an offering. Opal says, a witch who owns this import store near me taught me to relax and ask if certain stone will work for me, and your upper body will either move forward for yes and back for no. I imagine that may work for other things, although I've never tried. I use my body to tell me which way energy is moving when I'm doing a house and stuff. Jacqueline, I've been loving your recent videos. Love you both. Thank you, Jacqueline. You're so good to us. When I'm trying to figure out what direction the energy is coming from, I close my eyes and sort of wait, and the energy will push my body in a certain direction, and then I'll find out where it's coming from, which way it's going, if it's going in a circle, clockwise or counterclockwise, so I can use my body kind of like a dowsing rod, I guess. So I think that's not a bad idea. Absolutely. It's just going to depend upon what you program it to do.
Yeah, and a lot of those things are so individual too. The things that work for one person and another, they can be very individual and even very specific.
Yeah, this is true. Yep. So I went to some dowsing classes in D.C. when I was younger, the American Dowsing Association. I don't know if they're still around. I haven't actually checked to see. I wouldn't be surprised if they're still around there and doing stuff. They might even be international by now. Maybe they were already and I didn't know it. But it's always interesting when you meet new people and so forth, and the way you learn things. Like, if someone does something to me that I really don't like, it teaches me that I don't want to do that to anyone else. Other people see that, and it teaches them to do it to someone else to get back at them. I find it very strange. But I had one of those encounters at one of the dowsing association things I went to. I was pretty shy, wasn't sure how to communicate or get involved in a conversation with people I didn't know. walked up to a group of people, asked a question about what this guy did, and he answered me in 8-syllable words, every one of them. So he used the secret language of his science or whatever the heck it was, to belittle me and make me feel stupid, which of course I knew I wasn't. But I thought, what an a-hole. And that's one of the reasons why I love explaining things to people in terms that are more readily understandable, because that's just annoying and stupid.
If you're trying to help people understand something, all that does is try to just like
makes you feel superior. That's right.
It's not really answering a question or anything. It's just
I'm so superior you can't understand a word that I say. And on the other end of that, though, what's fascinating is meeting people who use big words but don't know what they mean. And that's very strange, because they're using them to impress other people, but if someone is listening to them and knows what they mean and they're being used in the wrong way, it's sort of a whole different feeling that you get from having a conversation. So Jacqueline says, 60 degrees here today, was out in the tea house ringing the fairy bells. Ooh, awesome. Yes. Jono says, Siofra, your reference to chaotic dreams makes me nervous because you have predicted plenty already. Is it bad? Well, it is bad, but I saw a lot of conflict, fire and flood and confusion in travel, and I think it's specific to this country. I don't think it's worldwide. But who knows? I mean, since I live here, that's probably what I'm going to be dreaming about. And unfortunately, Trump was in the dream, which made me very nervous. And then I was very worried about Jon Stewart. I was looking for him because I was worried he was going to get hurt. I told my granddaughter that this morning. She says, oh, yes, he is the national treasure. We must keep him safe. Jacqueline says, I love when they mispronounce the big words. Yes, I don't make fun of them, but know where they're coming from. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. The more informed you are about what's going on in somebody, the safer you will be. The one real experience with that was when I was pregnant with my daughter, and that guy was predicting that my daughter's birth was going to bring about Jesus in the spaceships and invade the world and kill everybody with the bubonic plague that ate milk and cheese and things like that. And he was my real experience with someone using words that they didn't understand. It was very strange. Angela says, I always tell people if I butcher that word, please let me know how to say it. Yes. And there's some words we don't know how they're said because we've never heard anyone say it, and there's no reason to make fun of somebody for saying it wrong if they haven't been told how to say it right.
That's what I'm afraid of with a lot of my researches into Hinduism and the Tantra and stuff, is that I don't have an instructor to tell me how to pronounce them properly.
So Mary says, I hope Jon Stewart is safe. Jacqueline says, unless he was in the flood. Mary says, I love to hear about what you do with your doll and your pendulum, Angela. Yep. It's like, the thing is that I agree with, I don't understand why people spend so much time on conflict. It's such a huge waste of time and energy. There's so much more we could accomplish if people weren't worried about what other people were doing and how that said something about them when it has nothing to do with them at all.
Well, it's widespread. It's built into our culture. Our whole culture is based on conflict, really.
Well, yeah, it has been for a long time. Opal says, these days we have Google that can help you pronounce words, even other languages, if it's correct. We're not sure we trust Google all the time, because sometimes, they're evil. Google used to be able to say, at least we're not evil, and that's not true anymore. We were having, my daughter and I were just having a conversation when I was working on her in my house, and her phone was next to her. And at the end of the conversation, her phone gave her an ad for everything we talked about on her phone. So it's pretty clear that Google listened in, or her phone listened in, and then did stuff. So Angela says, she stands in as a statue. I keep the pendulum on her wrist, and she moves it to show me she's there. And the doll will get a look in its eyes once I get those indicators. I start my working or give my offering. I hold it and comb its hair. Sometimes when she's there and meditate holding it. My hands shake too bad to use the pendulum myself, but her doll makes a perfect pendulum holder. Anjali says, the Hindu myself, the fact you're making the effort learning is more wonderful than pronunciations. I don't even know the correct pronunciations most of the times myself. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And it's like, I think intent definitely matters as far as it goes. Jono says, conflict since the beginning. Do you remember a past life without conflict? Well, there was one that I enjoyed when I was an old woman herbalist living in the woods, and people would come to me for herbal remedies, and I was left to my own devices, and that was fun. That one was pretty much okay. I don't remember any trauma from that one, at least at the moment. Mary says, wow, Angela, that is cool. Yeah, and enlivening a statue is sort of what she's talking about, and my statues will sometimes move on their own, and it's interesting when that happens, when you feel the presence in there, and the mouth will start to move or something. It's kind of freaky, but interesting too. Opal says, yeah, I've had ads show up from just thinking about something I needed. Oh, yeah, that's really bad. You don't want that. Have it reading your minds.
That's the new Siri.
That's the new AI that's out there trying to read everyone's minds. Desideratum says, desideratum is a Latin word that hasn't been spoken by a native speaker for thousands of years. No living person knows how to say it properly. Oh. Cool, so that means we can't be told we're saying it wrong. Angela says, thank you. I definitely recommend using dolls if statues are out of your price range. I have for years. They seem to work amazingly. Yeah, any kind of a house for a deity will work. The only thing to remember is that if you're using it like that, then you're responsible for whatever happens to it afterwards. We had one of our former members enlivened a statue that she bought. It was a garden statue of Kuan Yin. And then when she moved, she didn't release the goddess energy from the statue the right way. And she ignored everything I said, of course, because at that point she didn't want to do anything I said anyway. And I think that might have had a backlash on her, because it's sort of like having a pet or an animal. It's like you've taken on the responsibility to house and feed and protect, keep safe from harm, a life form. And no matter what its body is, whether it's a pet or a statue or whatever, then there is a certain level of responsibility that you take on with it. And so releasing it properly when it's not going to be in your care anymore is definitely part of the process. And yeah, Mary did some weird stuff.
Well, she was a sociopath.
Well, so. Yeah. She decided that stabbing the ground beneath the statue with a knife was the thing to do to release the statue. And I'm like, this is Kuan Yin. I mean, maybe that would work with some other deity, but this is Kuan Yin. This is not the way to go about that, but oh well.
I don't think it was that. I honestly think she was charging the thing up to give to somebody else and suck off their energy.
Yeah, it's possible.
She was
psychic vampire.
Had no problem with
doing negative stuff.
Nasty stuff, yeah.
Angela says, I always give them a transfer item, make double sure all the energy has moved, then if it's broken, wrap the doll and dispose of it, or pretty it up and donate it. Yeah. And I'm sure that you're taking care of yours quite well. I don't have any worries there. But I certainly have seen the other kind. And seeing a statue that's been enlivened is interesting. The statue of Shiva on the grounds of the ashram up in Portland is pretty incredible. It's an amazing thing to experience, the whole grounds there, actually. And then also the enlivened statue of Muktananda or Chitandananda.
Is there a...
Yeah, Nityananda, that's the one.
Yeah.
Statue of him. Muktananda is in the middle.
Yeah, he learned for about 9 years with Muktananda. I don't remember if he was a statue. I know there was a big picture of him up.
No, they had a statue they
Did
showed
they?
to
Okay.
us that had his ashes in it.
For Nityananda.
For Nityananda, yeah. Not Muktananda, though, yeah. Right. It was kind of interesting.
Lots of Anandas there.
There's all kinds of Anandas. Mary says, I just got a teeny tiny Durga statue for my altar with a card, and when I got home, the statue was missing. Maybe she's hiding in my car somewhere. It's a mess. Oh, well, yes. Maybe you could do a prayer to Durga and find her. Mary says, I put the card on my altar. Luna says, ooh, could you do a video on enlivening a statue doll by any chance, please? Actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I have my notes. I can make notes. Any other ideas enlivening statues? Yeah. There's different methods, I'm sure. A statue or doll. Okay. The idea has been written down. Desidratum says, is there anything you can do to release an enlivened statue that's been stolen? Yes. Well, when you make the statue, you can program it so that if it leaves your care, the energy is released to the universe. If you didn't do that before you lost the statue, you can still connect to the energy of the being that you put in the statue, like, through the Akasha or the mental plane or something, and then have a conversation with the energy and make sure that it left and that it's okay. That's what I would do anyway, if it happened to be something like that. But that's one of the reasons for programming death dates. That's one of the ways to program a death date into anything magical that you make. Like, if this is stolen from me or I lose it, it's no longer where I can do anything with it, the energy will come back to me or go into the earth or something like that and be released, and no longer attached to me so someone can't use it to harm you. Because that's a concern that people definitely have if they have something of yours, that you've handled for a long time. And some people are nasty people. I've run across a couple of them here and there. I don't understand the reason for it, but, Jono says, Luna, if I don't get to do Akashic Volts, you don't get to make a golem?
Yeah, that's cute. But that actually makes me want to comment on that a little bit. Using Akashic Volts is not so much of an issue. The problem is you come in contact with the Akasha, you have to be very clear, because just like I happened to be in contact with the Akasha when I mentioned our air mattress popping, and it popped. I mean, I've had things like that happen several times where I just think of something because I'm in too close of a contact with the Akasha, and I'll just think of something, and if it's negative, it can happen like right away, like right that moment. I got the front end of my van dented by one of those thoughts that happened right off one day, and so yeah, that's the thing about the Akasha is you need to be clean and clear and focus on just the one thing, and if you can do that, purity and cleanliness, then the Akasha is okay. But it's so you just might get yourself into trouble with it. But I don't myself. I occasionally try to do some Akashic work. And the other thing, the golem. Rabbi Lowe was supposed to have made that, and I think somewhere we can even, maybe, find the Kabbalistic word that he used. He put a Kabbalistic word on a little scroll and placed it under the tongue of the golem to bring it alive, according to the story.
That's the myth about it, for sure. Yep. Angela says, get a transfer item and ask the entity to help you call the energy to the new item. Yep, it's a good idea. That works too, give it a new house. Desidratum says, I saw a video of an enlivened statue of Kali and it was fierce. I think you sent me that once. Luna says, Jono, stop sulking and pull your bottom lip up. Desidratum says, my Exu was stolen.
You had an Eshu stolen?
Uh-oh. You know what that is.
Yes. So, wow. I can't imagine that the person took it as having a good time.
I can't imagine either, because that's not okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, an issue is kind of like related to like the Eliwa,
Right.
kind of not the same, but
Different,
same
similar.
kind of idea with communication and all that. And I'm so sorry. I feel sorry for the person who took it, though.
Well, we had that encounter with all those objects that were stolen from sacred sites in that store we were in once.
So yeah, I
And
think
yeah,
I'd
that's a dangerous thing
recommend
for someone to do.
to try to make an Akashic connection with it if you can, and clear it out that way. If I honestly don't know what goes into the making of an issue, but if there's any like physical material, like any of your hair in them or anything like that, and like I say, I don't know, or drop a blood or something, then you've got a direct connection to it, and you should be able to decharge that through connection with it that way. But I'm guessing, I don't know how they're constructed.
You don't have any water out here, do you?
Yes.
Because apparently I got a tickle.
I've seen issue. Physically, a physical issue, not psychically or something.
Right. Sandcat says, hi, Siofra and Ian. Ian's been answering the question that Angela had, what is an issue. Luna says, ouch, Ian, that kind of thing happens to me often. Think about it and it happens. Not sure I'm linked to the Akasha, though. Well, that could be something different. That could be just clairvoyant intuition. And it's coming and you know that it's coming, but you haven't verbalized that it's coming. And then all of a sudden, you know it's there and you say it out loud and then there it is. So I don't think there's always a cause and effect.
An issue is a little... it can be in several different forms. The one I saw was a stone, and it was covered in red and black beads. And it has a little being that lives in there, so it's related to like Santeria and voodoo and that kind of thing. That has certain characteristics and functions and things, but I understand you don't want to fool around with issue, so yeah, he's probably not happy about being stolen.
Well, not only that, but usually those kind of statues have feeding schedules, offerings, and things like that they need to have. And if that doesn't happen, they also get annoyed.
I'm not so familiar with the issue exactly. So.
Right, I don't either.
But I know, like Eliwan, then that's normal practice, is a once a week feeding or something.
So Julia says, phew, didn't miss this entirely. Greetings and happy smiles to all. Hi, Julia. Thank you for joining. Jono says, you are connected to the Akasha, Luna. That's how you broke your neighbor's pressure washer. Ian is good at breaking things without meaning to. He is uniquely capable of finding the flaw and the weak spot in any piece of equipment or tool that has ever been made that he has handled.
That's true.
And I, speaking of pressure washers, I could use the thing for years without it breaking. He uses it once and it's in pieces because he found its flaw. I always thought he'd make a great tester for items.
I'm trying to be less destructive, though. That's a little bit of the Wile E. Coyote thing, I guess.
Yeah. Angela says, ooh, the person who took that is probably going to bring that back and say, get rid of this thing. I've heard of people doing that. Well, maybe. Depends on how long it's been gone. And it could be that if they're an idiot, and if they stole that, they're likely an idiot, they may not put two and two together. I mean, that's the thing, is like a lot of people don't believe in this stuff, and then when something actually starts to happen, that's not the first place they go in their head. So who knows? Liliana says, hi. Hi, Liliana. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, so it's always interesting, though, all that kind of stuff. It's like things have personality to me. Inanimate objects have ideas and personality and desires and wishes and things, and get annoyed sometimes or don't like it when you wear them a certain way. But not everyone is aware of that. And I guess we're weird that way, being more aware of how the items around us feel. I mean, I could give everybody a bunch of crystals and things, just cool things, and say, here, put these on a table and see what comes out. And mostly anybody here would be able to put it into a pleasing pattern of some kind, because there's a lot of different configurations, but there's only one bad configuration. Like, and I went into a place that was a museum that somehow they did that, and it was so discordant. My brain was like screaming in my head. I'd look at a display that had all these things in it, and I'm like, how did they do that? They put everything in here in the wrong place in relation to everything else. It's like an anti-gift or something. Anti-harmony gift. It was just bizarre. But yeah, but not everybody apparently is aware of that, because man, that person was, yeah. Of course, that was the place that had the spirit inhabiting the wax figure in the basement. So considering what was in the basement, or downstairs in the galley, I guess, it was a ship, probably is an indication of why all that stuff was wrong. So Liliana says, hello there, so happy to finally join. I absolutely love your channel. I was planning on making a wand and charge it on the solar eclipse this month. Awesome. There is a different type of eclipse this month that's, I saw something about it just the other day. It's a specific type of eclipse that doesn't happen very often, but it's going to be like in the Indian Ocean and somewhere. Angela says, I used to apologize to museum items quietly when I used to go to museums. Oh, I have trouble in some of those displays. I went into a display of Chinese artifacts, I think at the National Museum of History in Washington, D.C. at the Smithsonian, and I just about passed out because I started getting so much information from the items. I had to get out of there quick. That was a long time ago. Might be better at it now, because that was before I could have much control over my abilities. Jono says, I would feel awful for anyone who stole one of my magical items, especially my Saturn talisman or Athame, but frankly, any of it. Seems like a poor notion.
Yeah, poor choice.
Poor choice.
A magical item, yeah.
Linda says, my neighbor spent the whole of summer 21 using his pressure washer. It really upset my hearing and vibration, and one day I could take no more. I watched him from my bedroom window and got physically red hot and felt my energy shooting outwards as I willed the washer to break, and seconds later it broke. Not to go again. He got another, and I had to learn to control myself. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
but very satisfying that it worked.
I had something like that happen once when I was really, really pissed off at my stepfather, and this was when I was young. I was 14 or 15 or something.
Straight in your testosterone stage.
And he had this, he was riding this motorcycle, and I was so pissed, I just got this image of a laser just like cutting this thing in half. And the frame on his motorcycle broke. How often do you hear about the frame on a motorcycle breaking?
That's pretty unusual.
So yeah, that was the end of that, and it was just too coincidental. But I can't do something like that on purpose if I want to. But it's one of those things that happened.
Yeah.
Because I was so angry. Yeah.
Angela says, people actually mostly avoid touching my items. A family member in a really bad mood didn't come past the doorway until he calmed down. Ha! Desiderata says, wax figure in a basement? Was it a pirate? Yes, it was.
Yes,
it was a pirate. And I'm pretty confident that it had actual clothing from it on. I mean, someone put this very malevolent, nasty spirit into this wax figure. And I figured it was like a punishment of some kind. And I did not know what was happening. It wasn't like a normal haunting or anything like that. It was very, very different and very distinct. I mean, I get anger from ghosts and stuff all the time, but it's normal anger. This was just straight up malevolence. So I looked at Ian, I said, we need to leave now. He said, okay, and out we went. And we were out of there. I thought about writing them, but I thought, yeah, I'm not gonna do anything about it, so why bother, right? That was a funny noise. Liliana says, I was wondering if I can set the intention to have it be a tool to connect me with the Fae, nature spirits, and even the She. I've been really feeling connected to them lately. Well, that's a possibility with an eclipse, because transitional times is a sacred special time for the Fae. So, like dawn and dusk, and a day that suddenly is kind of becoming a night sort of thing would be a transitional time, so it could be. Lewell says hello. Hi, Lewell. Angela says, that's another thing. I don't get why put these angry, potentially dangerous beings in dolls where they could build their energy. Yeah, I don't know what the story was behind that.
Yeah, that one was just an oddity.
Whoever put that in there had some pretty powerful energy to do that. So, but that's an assumption that I made since I got out of there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not helping you. You're a serious a-hole, so, bye. I help people even if they're mad figure out what's happening, and that's not a problem, but that was like next level. Luna says that at Jono, still changing the bed. Turns out Ziggy likes to ride the duvet whilst I'm shaking it. I inherited a timid elderly cat a few weeks ago, scared of his own shadow, but apparently really enjoys gamboling around on the bed and getting wrapped up in the sheets. He's purring like crazy. Well, that's awesome. And Shay says, hello, all. Wow, those are some amazing stories you were sharing about breaking things. Yep. I think
the goal to break things.
It's not the goal, but it does sometimes happen. So, yes. Desideradum says, I've heard about this from another paranormal investigator. She didn't think it was human. Well, someone else in Oregon? It must be, because that's where he was. And it was interesting because he was there for a long time and then he was gone. And then I thought, okay, he's moved. And then he was back and stronger because I could feel it for like a mile and a half or so before I got there. I could feel his energy.
But I have to agree, it didn't feel like angry human energy. It was malevolent, but it didn't feel human. So I would agree with that myself.
Yeah, it could be. Like I said, it was just, I'm getting the heck out of here. I don't know what's going on. It's interesting. It could very well not have been human.
Yeah.
Whatever it was not nice. It was nasty. Nasty thing. I guess we should drive down there one day and see if it's still there. About the pirate. It was supposed to be Blackbeard. I don't remember. No, I don't think
it's been too long.
It's been too long. I don't think it was supposed to be Blackbeard. It was supposed to be one of the ones that's off the Oregon coast. And we've had a number of pirates. I met the spirit of one of the, I guess, not a pirate so much as a privateer or something like that, that's farther up the coast in Yachats, right outside of Yachats, just before Yachats, actually. And his ship sunk out there, and he's like wandering up and down the beach, looking for his ship and his shipmates and things. But he didn't have any kind of malevolent, icky energy to him. So, I don't know. Jono says to Luna, heart, love you. Yes. Animals are sweet. It was kind of nice having Bugsy here. It's been interesting because we haven't had a cat in a while. And he is definitely a cat. We're not sure how long we'll have him, though. Hopefully his person's going to get a place to live so he can go back to her. They've been together since he was little. He's 12.
By the way, this all reminds me of a mutual friend that we have who let a non-human, in fact it was a random energy like a poltergeist. He let it in to try to find out what it wanted, and there was nothing there. It was just a thrashing mass of angry energy that then he couldn't get out of him. And there's a whole story about that. But
yeah, I think we talk about it on a couple of different videos.
He was trying to find out what was causing this poltergeist. And
it was an impressive poltergeist. It was stacking furniture within like seconds. People would leave the room and then come back and all the furniture would be standing on top of each other. I've not seen that myself. It sounds pretty impressive. Yeah. It's like, whoa.
But apparently it was just, there was no intelligence there at all, so they couldn't speak to it or get anything out of it. And then Joe was just possessed with it for a while until they apparently burned him with a cigarette to get it out.
Figuring it
worked.
didn't, yeah. Before it left, or as it left, it threw him against the wall, picked up the chair and threw him.
That's
what he said,
yeah.
anyway.
That's what we have heard.
we have no reason to
weren't
discount
there,
him.
but yeah.
Yep. He seems to be a pretty honest individual, and we've known him off and on for years. Angela says, yikes. Yeah. It's always good to be cautious. And never leave your body and let something else come in unless you know who they are. Yeah, you need to know what you're offering first. Liliana says, personally, I can only see the sylphs as little lights floating around in the air, and especially when I'm outside as I let my gaze soften. I'm wondering if I have a stronger connection to them. Well, sylphs are hard to connect with to start with. They're extremely shy. And since they're air spirits, they're very ephemeral, it's like not much substance there, so seeing them the way you are is probably pretty close to how they would appear in general. I have felt a few here and there, but it is unusual, so you may very well have a connection with them. I have an easier time connecting with the undines. Of course, they taught me how to swim, so I've been connected to them since I was little. And so I have a familiarity with their energy and they with mine. We're kind of compatible that way. Angela says, if I ever saw a spirit stacking furniture or throwing things, I've said, we can talk when you're in a Marvel Light mood.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yep.
Britton says, hey, Menorah, I've come to say watch and say hi. Caught you live. Woo. Hi, Britton. How you doing? Sandcat says, I lived in a house with two guys that are brothers years ago. Something used to stack furniture in a tiny spare room. I still don't know what it was. It's always fascinating to find that kind of stuff and trying to understand it, because it sort of broadens our understanding of the potential of what reality actually is and might be that we don't always tune into.
It's interesting, too, that it was like just a force, But it would do that, which you'd think somebody intelligent might do or something, the stacking of the furniture and stuff, but it was just kind of a blind force doing that, apparently.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Jono says, my understanding of poltergeists is that they are thought forms created from passionate blind emotion. Do you think it would ever be possible to have constructive communication with a poltergeist? Well, the traditional poltergeist is usually either an elderly person who's really, really mad, or a young person who's really, really frustrated and angry and going through puberty. And that's what they mean by like a blind force that's attached to a person. That seems to be where most of them are. This sounds like it was something completely different. And I don't think so, because I think if it's an extension of the energy of an individual, the way they usually get rid of those kinds of poltergeists is with therapy with the person who's the source, and getting their inner conflict resolved so that they're not putting it out there like that. So
it's not something I would attempt in the first place. So, and after what happened to him, I don't recommend it either.
Yeah, it may be better served to try and figure out how to communicate with something that's more, compatible with humans.
You might want to leave your body afterwards, yeah.
Well, yeah.
It in, yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, as a channel, it helps that, most channels have got like a gatekeeper kind of thing, being or whatever, that sort of makes sure something like that isn't going to happen. So clearly our friend just kind of opened himself up and said, hey, here's a body, check it out. See
Everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody does. Desiree says, by the way, speaking of Blackbeard, Taika Waititi made a show called Our Flag Means Death, loosely, based on a gay version of Blackbeard, and it is awesome. Okay. Maybe we will remember to check it out, and maybe we won't, but it's always good to find something awesome. There have been some certainly interesting TV shows with that. We started rewatching the Invisible City, which is a Brazilian show, which is about their folklore, I like watching shows about other cultures, native spirits or fae or whatever, and it's been kind of fun. We had to rewatch the first season because it's been so long since we saw it. But I like exposing myself to, different mythologies and different folklore.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that was kind of cool, and it's not like the beings aren't all negative-ish. I mean,
right. Well, they're all powerful and potentially dangerous if you don't understand them, which would sort of explain
I
most.
like the portrayal of the entities.
Angela says, I got a headache from a doll in a thrift shop once. I opened a doll box and there was a stabbing pain as soon as I made eye contact. I picked up and cuddled a nearby doll, then walked back over, and then no bad reaction this time. I think the spirit was just protective of its doll. Interesting. Sandcat says, Taika Waititi is awesome. I love his movie Hunt for the Wild People. Okay, let's see if we can find something like that and check it out. Everyone has so many different tastes as far as what they enjoy and whatnot. Depends on the mood we're in sometimes.
Oh, it depends on my mood a lot.
Yes.
I'll go from not liking something one day to liking it a lot the next day just because my mood has changed and I'm, as far as shows and things like that go. Or music. I'll not like something one day and then next week I'll go crazy over it again.
Interesting. So yeah, we're sort of focused on making sure we're available for family members right now with the whole people in the hospital thing.
Yeah.
But Julia says, speaking of different folklore and cultures, I've been exploring Santa Muerta. I've liked the energy I've encountered so far.
No, nothing about it myself. There's so many different ones.
Yes, there are. Angela says, I watch horror movies when I watch paranormal or ghost investigators. I think, don't be insulting, don't do something rude. Oh, you did it. What did you expect? Mary says, how do you watch that show you're talking about, Siofra? It's on Hulu? No, it's on Netflix. So, yeah. And they have, it's a English dubbed version, which helps with us. I mean, I know the voices aren't actually the voices of the actors. I wish I could understand I'm sure that there is more nuance when it comes to the emotional content and so forth. Although this one, the voice actors aren't doing a bad job. Sometimes they do a terrible job, and then you're like, I can't watch that. I'd rather read subtitles. Opal says, I'm a podcaster. I love listening to things while I'm working on something or cleaning, etc. Julia says, amen to expectations when you insult. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be running around insulting things.
Yeah, well, that's one of the annoying things about all the ghost investigators on TV and that, a lot of them try to insult them just to get a result.
Well, that's it. They're trying to irritate them in order to make them react to get something on camera, and that's just rude. It's like the same rules apply when you're dealing with, spirits and stuff like that, in my opinion, as when you're dealing with the living. And if, someone came into your house and started beating your curtains and making noises on your floor and running your water and stuff like that, you'd want to kick them out. So, big surprise that some of them end up screaming, going out the door. It's like, yeah, you're a jerk, so go away, leave us alone. Angela says, I wonder if when it doesn't work, if the ghosts took a vacation elsewhere until the investigation is done sometimes. Mm-hmm. Or they're just like, I'm sorry, I'm not cooperating with this idiot.
Not gonna bother, yeah.
Desideram says, I've heard that poltergeists begin as thought forms but develop sentience, which is super bad. From what I understand, you want to disperse the thought form before that happens or big time trouble. Yeah. Jacqueline says, I stick to fairies and the land guardians on my property. It's a safe bet. Get to know your locals. It's a good thing. Julia says, getting a reaction is not anywhere near an adequate excuse.
Yeah. I agree completely.
And the fakery. Some of the fakery on some of those shows really, really gets to me. I mean, we caught them doing one here in Oregon. It was at a mine, and they set up this shot, and they forgot and left in the person who was hiding in the train car that they saw on their infrared camera. You can see them leaving the car and running up the hill on the other side as they're coming up, going like, oh my God, there's no one here. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't believe anything you guys do now. Just forget that. Sandcat says, I listen to old horror stories on a YouTube channel called Horror Babble. They are all about 100-year-old stories, so not overly sinister, just a bit chilling. Melanie says, Siofra, do you have any idea for protecting my duck coop from predators? I put black tourmaline out there with them. My sister has ducks, so you're looking at needing to have like things over top so the hawks can't get down into the coop, and things around the outside so that the animals can't get in, like raccoons. And you might even want to put stuff like in the ground, because some animals will actually burrow underneath to get them. But, they're nature, and that's nature. If there's anything edible and something wants it, they're going to look and see, oh, look, this is all nice in one little spot. So, I don't know. I'll ask my sister, but it's one of those things. Desideratum says, Taika Waititi did another show called What Do We Do in the Shadows? It's so damn funny. I highly recommend it for comic relief. I think I might have seen that and I didn't like it. It was not my kind of humor. But it really, humor is so personal. That's the one about the vampires living and doing a podcast or something like that. And it wasn't my style for sure. But not that you should have to not watch it. Feel free. Sandcat said, I'll have to check out What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah, so it's such a personal thing. Jono says, Angela, I doubt it'll be an earthbound ghost, but if I was, I would go out of my way to be as irritating as possible. You think you'll get EVP or video of me? No, you won't. Just after you've packed up. Oh yeah, really get them. Julia says, chicken cloth, even finer grain, so to speak, keeps all the types of predators out, including snakes and rats. Good. Okay. Angela says, I liked the episode about the energy vampire that drained the other vampires and made them sleepy all the time. Julia says, finer grain than chicken wire, excuse. Yes. Not cloth. Not chicken cloth, chicken wire.
And they call it cloth. I've seen it listed that way in the outdoor store.
Yeah. You do what you can, but, my sister actually saved one of her ducks from a hawk. It was attacking in the yard, and at first she thought it was another one of the ducks, and they were doing their thing. And then she ran out and discovered it was a hawk, and the hawk had managed to take some of the feathers off, so the ducks stayed in her house for a period of time recovering, because without their down they would freeze and die, and it was cold outside, so she had to create an inner coop. Her husband wasn't happy about it, but it's my duck, I'm sorry, we're taking care of this. But yeah, it can be one of those things. Lugo says, speaking of nature, we live in a city 10 miles from New York City, and last night it was the third time that a fox came to visit our doorstep. Camera caught it. How awesome. Well, yes, foxes and coyote both are starting to become part of the city and rural settings because they have nowhere else to go. Sandcat says, The Lost Boys is the best vampire movie in my opinion. I was in that. On the cutting room floor, I was an extra. They filmed that in Santa Cruz when I was there. It was pretty funny. Very weird experience. Angela says, I love Dracula Untold. It was a pretty cool movie. Melanie says, I have all the physical protections in place. I am just looking for support energetically. Thank you for the tips, Julia. Yeah, well, seems black tourmaline seems like a good thing. I'll think if I can think of something else, but I don't know. Angela says, The Strain was an interesting vampire series. I had to skip certain episodes as they were triggering, though. I think when things get too graphic, I'm not interested in them because I'm too much of an empath. The only time I like a horror movie is at Christmas time. I use it as an antidote when things get too sugar sweet for me. And I haven't needed it for a while, but I was really happy when I discovered, oh, I feel better now. Sandcat said, I got attacked by one of my ducks years ago. I was trying to look at her babies, and I got a bit too close. Yeah, animals are very protective of their young. Jono says, Lewell, that's awesome. A fox bit Kit Luna's bum. Oh, bit Luna's bum one night, which is the best story ever. I think it's a spirit animal of hers, like Ian with bats. Yeah, it could be. Julia smiles to Melanie. You are welcome. Sandcat says, that's so cool that you were in The Lost Boys. I've got to watch it again and look for you. I was in the crowd on the boardwalk, and I was on the carousel, but I've never actually caught myself. I think that I looked at the camera and they got rid of me every time because I was like, what's that? Oh, and then the director kept saying, stop looking at the camera. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, was that me? So I may not show up, but yeah, it was interesting. Liliana says, lately I've been reconnected to not just nature, but the spirits and the fae around me. Since I was a baby, I've had this unicorn with a fairy statue, a tooth fairy container, and loved Tinkerbell. Yay! I've had fairies around me my whole life, too. Luna says, yep, more of a several playful nips on the bum. Well, that's a pretty close encounter. Angela says, oh my God, Luna, were you okay? Did you have bacon in your back pocket? Melody says, thank you, Siofra. You're welcome. Sandcat says, stop looking at camera. Me keeps looking at camera. Yep, pretty much. Desiderata and Melody actually might want to try brown tourmaline as a crystal grid connected with gnome or earth elemental energy. Gnomes are fierce protectors of animals. Or find out what god or goddess really likes ducks. I mean, you know, somebody lost their dog in Portugal, their puppy, and asked me to help them find it. And I'm like, they didn't have a name for the puppy. They had just gotten the puppy, so there was like no link for me to sink my teeth into. So I sort of petitioned Artemis, since dogs are one of her things that she protects, to help them find the puppy, and they did find the puppy. So we're all very happy about that. So sometimes that kind of thing can help find out what the natural guardian protector is of the animal, and maybe put a statue in there of it or something like that. I'm not sure what is the ducks thing, because I'm not familiar, but I'm sure there's one out there somewhere. Mary says, I circle enclosures with incense and chant to Durga for the animals I want to protect. There's another idea. Luna says, I did have a dream of a fox last week when I was considering working with that fox skull. The fox in my dream told me to use it. The fox was different colors, kind of like an alabrigi. Or whatever that is, it must be a very colorful animal. Mary says, I think you could also make protection sigil of some kind and hang it close, like a witch ball or something. Not a bad idea. Angela says, if all else fails, ask Gaia Mother Earth energy is good to protect pets. Melody says, thank you, everyone. We're giving you all kinds of ideas. We're just throwing stuff out there. But yeah. So, I guess we're getting close to the end of our show. We only got a few minutes left.
Yep.
Time certainly started flying by there. We were having all kinds of fun.
That's good. I like it when we get a good subjects going. Oops. Oh, there we go. Sorry.
What do we do in the shadows? Janos and my favorite. Angela says, also put cayenne pepper in the dirt around the enclosure. Cayenne pepper.
Yeah.
The cayenne is a color. Yeah, okay. Joey says, thanks, Siofra and Ian. Great show today. Thank you. And I'll post the facility and the room and her name on the community bulletin board. So anyone who feels inclined to send her some healing energy or to potentially help with transition will be welcome to do so. So I'll get that out there. Violet says, thanks so much and big love. Angela says, and any other spicy stuff and thorns makes a hot foot powder, makes animals not want to dig around the pen. Desiderata says, I've missed this live stream. Normally I'm at Buddhist temple on Sundays, but they're closed today. Why? I have no idea. I don't know. The grocery store I went to was closed because it was Easter, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Mary says, have a great week, everyone. Have a great week, Violet, Jono says. So thanks, everybody. We always appreciate having your energy and our participation and everything else. So Julia says, love being here every time I can be. Hugs and loving thoughts to those who want them. Thank you very much for having me, Siofra and Ian. You're welcome. And Violet says, be well. All right. So.
Bye, Bep.
If you have any other ideas of things you'd like us to do videos on, you can send me either a message on the community board on our channel or on Facebook, or send me an email at siofrasmagicalcove@gmail.com. So, bye.
Bye all.